delivering the world to your doorstep. From breaking news to in-depth features, from politics to culture, from science to sports. Welcome to SNN Primetime News with
From
Kennedy
the studios
Lucas
of
Patterson.
K.L.P. Entertainment, this is SNN Primetime News.
Bella Hadid's Adidas advert dropped after Israeli criticism. Adidas has dropped the supermodel Bella Hadid, who is half Palestinian, from an advertising campaign for retro shoes referencing the 1972 Munich Olympics. Israel had criticized the choice of Ms. Hadid. It accused her of hostility to Israel and noted that 11 Israeli athletes had been killed by Palestinian attackers at the Munich Games. Adidas subsequently apologized and said it would revise its campaign. Ms. Hadid has been a vocal supporter of the Palestinians and earlier this year donated money to support relief efforts for the war in Gaza. BBC News has contacted Hadid's representatives for comment. The German sportswear company had chosen Hadid to promote its SL72 trainers, which were first launched to coincide with the 1972 Olympics. Adidas recently relaunched the SL72 shoes as part of a series reviving classic trainers. However, images of the American model wearing the shoes prompted criticism, including on Israel's official account on X, formerly Twitter. Guess who the face of their campaign is? Bella Hadid, a half-Palestinian model, a post read on Thursday. It referred to the attack at the 1972 Games, which happened when members of the Palestinian Black September group broke into the Olympic Village. In addition to the Israeli athletes, a German police officer was also killed. Other social media users defended Ms. Hadid and called for a boycott of Adidas following the move to pull the campaign. Adidas confirmed to K.L.P that Hadid had been removed from the campaign. In a statement provided to the news agency, the company said it would be revising the remainder of the campaign with immediate effect. "We are conscious that connections have been made to tragic historical events, though these are completely unintentional, and we apologize for any upset or distress caused." Hadid, whose father is Palestinian property tycoon Mohammed Anwar Hadid, has been vocal in her support for people affected by the war in Gaza. In an Instagram post in May, Hadid said she was devastated at the loss of the Palestinian people and the lack of empathy coming from the government systems worldwide. Last month, she and her supermodel sister Gigi donated $1 million, £785,000, to support Palestinian relief efforts. The conflict in Gaza began when Hamas gunmen launched an unprecedented attack on Israel, killing about 1,200 people and taking 252 back to Gaza as hostages. Israel responded by launching a military campaign in Gaza with the aims of destroying Hamas and freeing the hostages. More than 38,900 people have been killed in Gaza since then, according to the territory's Hamas-run health ministry.
Good evening and welcome back to SNN Primetime News. Breaking top story tonight: Pret a Manger, the decline of the free coffee. We all love a good deal, especially on our daily coffee, which, in some places, is closer to £4 a cup nowadays than £3. High street coffee shops enjoy offering us a deal too, especially if we buy into their loyalty models, which until recently seemed nearly as attractive as a silky smooth latte. And yet almost 4 years after launching its wildly popular subscription, Pret a Manger has become the latest coffee chain to ditch it in favor of a less generous scheme. Under the current system, subscribers who pay a monthly fee of £30 get up to 5 free coffees a day. But from September, Pret will offer up to 5 half-price coffees a day for £10 a month, which it says will continue to be the best offer on the high street. The change also ends the 20% discount on food for subscribers. Pret said it had never really got comfortable with the dual pricing system across its food products. The social media site X was awash with criticism following the Pret news. "You mess about with loyalty schemes at your peril," warned retail expert Catherine Shuttleworth. Commercially, this might make a load of sense for Pret, but the reaction it plays into the hands of their competitors. Pret is not the only coffee shop to have watered down its loyalty scheme. You might not have noticed, but your wallet probably has. Costa Coffee currently runs a free loyalty card, the Costa Club, but changed the terms last August. Customers went from needing 8 stamps, or beans, on their loyalty cards to qualify for a free drink to needing 10. At the end of 2022, Starbucks announced more loyalty points would be required to redeem many of its menu items. Customers who enroll in the chain's Starbucks Rewards program earn points, or stars, when purchasing food or drinks. Hot coffee, tea, or baked goods now require 100 stars, doubling the previous price of 50 stars. Experts told the BBC that less generous loyalty schemes were not a surprise with the rising cost of labor, packaging, and the coffee itself. The cost of Arabica beans has soared in recent years because of the impact of climate change in countries such as Brazil and Ethiopia. The industry is also still grappling with high energy and utility bills. Richard Lim, CEO of Retail Economics, told the BBC subscription models offered value to customers but had to be mutually beneficial to work. They can be good for businesses too because they produce a predictable, stable income that can rely on recurring revenue, he said. But if there's one party losing out, it won't work, and the big question is, was this commercially viable for Pret? I suspect not. The announcements from Costa and Starbucks caused outrage among customers at the time, and now it's Pret's turn. I only have a subscription because I couldn't be bothered to bring my own drinks to work, and there's a Pret in my building, one user said on X. With the new deal, it's cheaper to just stop being lazy. Another said Pret had broken their hold on the customer. A third customer said, I already get 25% off coffee from Nero with Compare the Market. Why would I continue to pay Pret for a similar discount scheme? Madness. One expert backed the new subscription model in an interview with the BBC this week, saying the old model alienated non-subscribers. Consumers today want immediate value. They shouldn't need a calculator to work out if they're getting a good deal, retail analyst Natalie Berg said. But Ms. Shuttleworth said Pret will be hoping people are lazy and stuck in their routines, though others might vote with their feet. From Pret's perspective, this subscription increased footfall and the chance of higher spending because people come for the coffee and pick up breakfast or a sandwich en route to the counter, she said. They did it to get customers back in after the pandemic when everyone was returning to their offices, and it worked, helping Pret return to profit last year for the first time since 2018. They now want to replace it with something that is better for them as a business. It's a big risk.
Good evening. Welcome to SNN Primetime News. I am your news anchor host, Kennedy Lucas here. Welcome back to another exciting episode, again, of SNN Primetime News. Now, before we get to our stories today, we have a jam-packed show for you guys here today. I do want to... Let me see if I can do my intro better than that. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another new edition of SNN Primetime News. I'm your news anchor, Kennedy Lucas here, and welcome to SNN Primetime News. Now, before we get on to the news and our top stories here today on this Sunday's edition, I'd like to announce that to all of our fans out there that are listening and tuning in to SNN Primetime News, this will be the new show bringing it back and giving you guys more content for both radio stations of Swanky 93.3 and The Heat 94.6, along with K.L.P Entertainment YouTube channels, Facebook Watch, and also on their audio platforms as well. Every Sunday, we're going to bring you guys a long, special podcast news type show when it comes down to SNN Primetime News. I'm very, very excited to be back here into the studio. I'm very, very excited to bring something back that was started last couple of months, but we took a break to do other shows and other movies and other podcastings, and now we're officially back here to give you guys SNN Primetime News. Now, within this is going to be featured this segment along with many segments from all of our producers and editors and even voice anchors here at K.L.P Entertainment as well. We hope that you guys enjoy this show here, and I'm very, very excited. Now, let's get started with our top story today. Now, the top story that has been growing up for the last few hours, luckily and thankfully, K.L.P Entertainment was not affected with the IT outages. But I've got to talk about it here tonight that these outages were very, very impactful for a lot of people, a lot of businesses. Airlines, hotels, businesses, hospitals have been affected with all of the IT outages that has been going on around the world. This has said to be the most global impact for the world to have an IT outage. Now, it has been said that Microsoft's co-company CrowdStrike has been involved into the IT takedown. They've been all over Bloomberg Technology and Bloomberg News to report on it. They've been on CNN to report more on it. And I wanted to kind of give my own take on this outage. The outage has been affecting people heavily. I would say it's been affecting people when it comes down to their travel. Here in Atlanta, we've seen it. We watched the news, y'all, that a lot of people have been infected within their flights being canceled or even delayed. I think a lot of people had it to where they've been seeing it most, where it's been most of a delay when it comes down to this IT outages. For an example, you've had people to pay upward of $500 within their plane ticket, and they're only getting $100 back as compensation for the IT outages. Now, I understand, like other people that has their tech companies, I completely understand that this has been very tragic for their companies because this is something that they want to not deal with. This is something they don't want to happen within their business. But since this is happening, a lot of people have been discussing ways to get their money back. Companies are trying to make sure that they're able to give their clients, their customers, the paying customers that's paying a high plane ticket price, they're not getting full compensation within the cancellation or the delay of their flights. A lot of people, sources have told us here at K.L.P Entertainment, that a lot of people either were getting ready to get married and going and flying out to their wedding destination. A lot of people are going to their family reunions. A lot of people are going to a birthday or going on a vacation trip, and now they're not able to have that trip out because their plane flight has been canceled and even delayed. I do say that it's a little bit unfortunate when it comes down to people who have booked their plane tickets and they're able to get their plane delayed and they're staying at the airport for hours and hours and hours on end, and then after that they're not finding out that their flight is being canceled. Now they've wasted a whole day to get their their notification that their flight has been canceled. Now, when the flight's been canceled, then you can't really do too much, can you? You can't really reveal back. You can't really get your money back. I think companies have to understand that this is very hard for consumers, simply because consumers, like I've mentioned, $500 in a plane ticket, trying to get their money back, they're not giving their money back. These are Americans' hard-earned dollars that they're spending on a simple plane ticket. And now that they're not able to get on their flight and they're not getting compensated for it, then that's a problem for the most consumers, right? I understand it. I come from the consumer background too, where if I paid for something and I'm not able to get the service or the item that I paid for and I'm not getting my money back, come on, what are we doing here? What are we doing? It is a crazy thing out there. I do say to a lot of people, I hope by the time you're listening to this show that the outage will continue. The outage will continue to die down. A lot of systems are starting to get rebooted as we speak, but they have to understand that, these are the consumer dollars that is down the drain. Like I said in previous podcasts before, a lot of people can't afford to pay the gas bill or the power bill right now because power bill is too high. So now you have it to where people are spending hundreds of dollars on a plane ticket to find out that they're going to the airport. The airports are delaying flights, so you're there at the airport all day, right? You're there all day, and then after that, you find out, oh, your flight's been canceled. Oh, we can't give you your money back. Close, we can give your money back, but the most money we can give your money back is $100. Sorry. I think this is a harsh thing for us right now because we rely so heavy on technology. And I know a lot of people would say that same spiel, but we rely so heavily when it comes down to our technology, IT. Information technology, it affects hotels, it affects planes, it affects some hospitals. A lot of people, some systems are getting shut down, so some surgeries are not happening in the hospitals. Somebody could be in so much pain, ready to get the surgery done, and guess what? The IT outage. We can't get your data processed right for a surgery. Sorry. You just got to suffer the pain. I think this is something that is very, very watchful. Like I say, we do rely heavy on our technology, and when technology fails us, it is one of those things that we cannot rebel back from. It's one of those things that it is there, and if we don't have technology, we fail. I honestly got to say that, and I say that very humbly, simply because here at K.L.P Entertainment, we are a tech company. So if any of our tech systems go down, then we're not running. We're losing money off of this business. Now, luckily that the IT outage didn't suffer for us because we do have some Windows products, but we're mostly Apple products here in the studio, so we didn't have to worry too much about it. But it's one of those things that it does affect a lot of people. I do hope that a lot of people were able to get their money back or were able to make their flight. But the IT outage was something, and this was, and get this, folks, this was the biggest outage, IT outage in world history. This might even be in the Guinness World Record for this year. The largest IT outage was this one, the CrowdStrike Microsoft outage that affected a lot of companies, right? A lot of companies within the system, when the system goes down, it affects another system. And when that system affects that system, it affects another system. Right? And then that next system affects that next system. And now you've got a collapse. You got a collapse of technology not working. You got a collapse of plane delays, a collapse of credit card informations that companies need, businesses need for their business. And that part is collapsing. And now you're out of technology. It is a sad world we live in where technology is helping running this country. With technology, help runs a lot of things. And when it goes down, it goes down. But like I say, I do hope that the technology is getting remorse, and I hope that it's getting ready to be fixed for a lot of people out there to get ready to travel on their plane or going to that business and having some great business transactions.
Reeves hints at above-inflation public sector pay rise. The chancellor has hinted that she may give public sector workers above-inflation pay rises this summer. Rachel Reeves' comments come after it is understood independent pay review bodies recommended an increase of 5.5% for teachers and some NHS workers. In her first interview from number 11 Downing Street, she said, "I really value public service workers, in our schools, in our hospitals, in our police as well. There is a cost to not settling, a cost of further industrial action, and a cost in terms of the challenge we face recruiting." But Ms. Reeves told Sunday with Laura Quensberg that we will do it in a proper way and make sure the sums add up, emphasizing that her spending rules are non-negotiable. The new chancellor promised a decision on public pay this month, saying people won't have long to wait. Speaking in an interview recorded on Saturday, Ms. Reeves also accused the Conservative Party of calling the election because they weren't willing to make tough decisions, and they just ran away. She said the decision about teachers' pay had sat on the former Education Secretary's desk, and that the Conservatives had allowed an unacceptable situation to build up in prisons. This was rejected by her predecessor Jeremy Hunt, who said the previous Conservative government had taken very difficult decisions in the wake of increased spending demands during the COVID pandemic. He accused Ms. Reeves of trying to lay the ground for tax rises by exaggerating the fragility of the public finances, adding that claims the Tories had left the worst economic inheritance since World War II is nonsense. He admitted, however, that his party would not have been able to make tax cuts it promised during the election campaign immediately. "But I think we would have been able to do it in time, and we had plans in place to do that," he told the program. The estimated cost of pay rises of 5.5% for teachers and certain NHS staff could reach £3 billion, according to the Institute for Fiscal Studies, IFS. That would be significantly more than the 2.5 to 3% the Treasury had expected. IFS Director Paul Johnson said paying for such an increase would require the government to either increase borrowing or taxes, or cut spending elsewhere. The most recent figures from the Office for National Statistics, ONS, put inflation at 2% in May and June, is suggesting a payoff or above 2% would count as being above inflation. But Mr. Johnson told BBC Radio 4's Today program on Saturday that the 5.5% figure was roughly what pay is rising by across the economy. Traditionally, governments follow the recommendations of the independent bodies, but ministers are not obliged to stick to their suggestions. Recommendations for other sectors are yet to be received, but the Chancellor does plan to announce the settlements before the end of July. Ms. Reeves also told the BBC that the government will carry out a landmark review of pensions as part of a Big Bang for growth. People who make sacrifices and save every month to put something aside for their retirement, they deserve better than the returns they're getting on those savings today. The Chancellor also wants to change industry rules so that billions of pounds sitting in pension funds can be used more easily to invest in UK companies to stimulate the economy. She continued, if we could unlock just 1% of the money in defined contribution schemes and invest that in more productive assets and fast-growing British companies, that'd be £8 billion to help finance growth and prosperity and wealth creation here in Britain. That's why there's an urgency here from this government, unlocking that investment for our economy and delivering for working people who make big sacrifices but at the moment are being let down by the pensions industry.
Why COVID-19 is spreading this summer. Every July for the past 4 years, epidemiologists at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, have noted a sudden spike in COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations, an annual trend which has been dubbed the summertime surge. This summer in the United States, COVID-19 rates are reportedly particularly high in Arizona, California, Hawaii, and Nevada. In these western states, the number of positive tests reached 15.6% on the week ending July 6, 1% up on the previous week. The CDC's investigations show that viral rates in wastewater are also on the rise once again. A similar trend has played out on the other side of the Atlantic, where according to the UK's Health Security Agency, positive COVID-19 tests rose from 4% at the end of March to 14% by the end of June. The recent rise has been attributed to the Flirt subvariants, the latest evolution of the Omicron strain of COVID-19 which emerged towards the end of 2021. This new raft of subvariants is the inevitable consequence of the virus trying out new mutations in its spike protein, a structure which is essential for COVID-19's ability to enter human cells, but can also alert the human immune system to the virus presence in the body. As a result, COVID-19 has found more effective ways of evading the neutralizing antibodies within most of our immune systems, while still being capable of locking onto the ACE2 receptor, a protein on human cells in the respiratory tract which allows it to enter the body. According to Shanlu Liu, who directs the Viruses and Emerging Pathogens program at The Ohio State University and has studied the Flirt subvariants, these latest COVID-19 viruses have managed to strike a balance between escaping the immune system and still being able to bind to cells, which is driving many of the new cases. The elderly and immunosuppressed are particularly vulnerable to new subvariants due to their weakened immune responses to vaccination and natural infection, says Liu. He explains that experts recommend that these groups receive booster shots including the XBB.1.5 monovalent vaccine. This was designed to target the Omicron XBB.1.5 subvariant of COVID-19, which emerged in 2022. Given the need to protect society's most vulnerable, studying these continually emerging variants remains crucial for updating the world's COVID-19 vaccines. Based on work done by Liu and others, U.S. regulators and the World Health Organization have been able to make specific recommendations regarding new vaccine targets based on the latest spike protein mutations, in time for the latest COVID vaccine rollout in the autumn. Yet for the scientists who monitor how SARS-CoV-2 is evolving and changing, it is still almost impossible to predict when the next strains of note will emerge. While most common respiratory infections like influenza or respiratory syncytial virus, RSV, follow seasonal patterns, surging during the autumn or winter months before abating in the spring and summer, COVID-19 is yet to settle into such a distinctive cycle. According to epidemiologists and medical researchers, there are three main factors which drive cases of infectious disease: the virus itself, how many humans are susceptible at a particular time, and the conditions for the virus to spread. Seasonality is a characteristic shared by many viruses, most famously the flu's yearly winter endemic, says El Hussein Shamsa, an internal medicine physician at University Hospitals in Ohio, who published a 2023 study on COVID-19 patterns throughout the year. In this case, it's thought that environmental and behavioral factors could lead to lower immunity and higher transmission of flu viruses in the winter, he says.
It felt as though there was a very clear signal that don't expect from Mark Zuckerberg at least any endorsement, even though we might hear it from others in Silicon Valley and beyond.
Yeah, I don't think there's any upside to him endorsing someone at this point, right? I mean, it's sort of like that old Michael Jordan quote, Republicans buy sneakers too. It's like he's got a global platform. He's got, partners on both sides of the aisle. He's got advertisers on both sides of the aisle. And I think for someone in his position, there's just not really, I think what we saw in that clip is about as close as he's going to come to, saying something that sounds like an endorsement for either one of these guys.
Well, it's still fascinating. This is what Trump said on Truth Social in March. I know you're familiar with this, Kurt, but it was in the context of whether or not he would get rid of TikTok. Facebook and Zucker Schmuck will double their business. So Zuckerberg said something nice about Trump. I don't know that Trump shares the sentiment, but this is a issue in this cycle. TikTok, social media, big tech.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's some political savvy in what Mark Zuckerberg said yesterday, right? I mean, if the winds are indeed changing, obviously talked about a lot over the last week, plus that it feels like Donald Trump is really taking sort of this election lead here. It's in Mark Zuckerberg's best interest to say something flattering or nice to the guy who may be president and who has threatened him and his company, right? And so I don't think that this was, a off-the-cuff comment. I'm sure this was somewhat calculated in that regard, and this is going to continue to be a contentious relationship. I don't think, because Mark Zuckerberg said one nice thing about Trump, suddenly these two are going to be buddies. But, he's staring down the idea of 4 more years of a Trump presidency. And so I think he's sort of, starting to set a new tone maybe that we hadn't heard over the last couple of years.
Well, things can change. As we discussed on the show this week, Kurt, President Trump is now pretty close with Mr. Elon Musk. These people matter. They have influence in Silicon Valley globally. They do. I mean, not only do they have the money, right? We talked about what Elon's doing in terms of his political donations and how impactful that can be, but they just have such a cultural influence over, they have fans, right? These are celebrity CEOs, and when they come out and say, in Elon's case, I endorse Trump, I'm giving money to Trump, that has a ripple effect to a lot of people who admire and respect what Elon says. And I think Mark Zuckerberg is the same way with a different audience, right? So these guys have such influence. That's why we care about what they say when it comes to politics.
Breaking news all over America. Joe Biden to drop out of presidential run. What Biden quitting means for Harris, the Democrats, and Trump. Joe Biden has turned the U.S. election on its head. After fiercely insisting for weeks that he would remain the Democratic nominee for president, he has bowed to pressure and dropped out of the race. Here's what it means for Vice President Kamala Harris, for the Democrats more broadly, and for Donald Trump. Harris is a risk, but one many Democrats will want to take. The prospects for Kamala Harris being the Democratic nominee have received a big boost with Joe Biden's endorsement. He gave her his full backing, calling his decision to make her vice president 4 years ago the best he ever made. She responded by saying she was honored to have his endorsement and would do everything possible to win the nomination. It is possible that most Democrats will follow the president's lead and fall in line behind the vice president to avoid ongoing uncertainty less than a month from the Democratic convention. There are practical and political reasons for doing so. She is next in the constitutional line of succession. The optics of passing over the first black woman on a presidential ticket would be terrible for the party. She would also immediately have access to the roughly $100 million in funds the campaign has raised so far. But there are also risks. Public opinion surveys show Harris's approval ratings are about as low as his. And in head-to-head matchups against Donald Trump, she fares roughly the same as Biden. Second is that Harris has had a sometimes rocky time as vice president. Early in the administration, she was given the task of addressing the root causes of the migration crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border. That's a daunting challenge, and a number of missteps and misstatements opened her up to criticism. She's also been the administration's point person on abortion rights, which has been a topic she has much more effectively handled. But those first impressions have stuck. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, Harris has already run for national office, her 2020 bid for the Democratic presidential nomination, and stumbled badly. While she surged early, a combination of fumbled interviews, a lack of clearly defined vision and a poorly managed campaign led her to drop out before even the earliest primaries. Opting for Harris is a risk for Democrats, but at this point there are no safe options. And the stakes, a possible Donald Trump victory, are as high as they get. Democratic convention could be chaotic yet gripping. Over the past half-century, political conventions have been transformed into somewhat boring affairs. With every minute carefully scripted for television, they've become extended multi-day commercials for the presidential nominee. Last week's Republican convention was certainly that way, even with Donald Trump's overly long, sometimes rambling nomination acceptance speech. Next month's Democratic convention in Chicago is shaping up to be very, very different. Whatever script the party and the Biden campaign had been working on just got thrown out the window. Even if the party falls in line behind Harris, it will be difficult to plan and control how things unfold on the convention floor. And if Harris doesn't succeed in uniting the party, the convention could turn into a political free-for-all, with various candidates vying for the nomination before the cameras and behind closed doors. It could make for gripping political theater, live and unpredictable, in a way the American public has never before witnessed. For Republicans, strong v. frail goes out window. This year's Republican convention was a carefully calibrated machine, promoting the party's most popular agenda items and focusing criticism on one man, President Joe Biden. It turns out, the Republicans were targeting the wrong guy. With the news of Biden's abandoning of his re-election campaign, the Republican game plan spearheaded by Donald Trump has been turned on its head. The Republicans spent an entire week of carefully scripted events focusing on the wrong weaknesses of the Democrat opposing them. The campaign had highlighted their candidate's strength and vitality by giving him a raucous entrance, preceded by appearances by former wrestler Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Fighting Championship impresario Dana White, as well as a performance by Kid Rock. The attempts at contrast with Mr. Biden's perceived frailty, and the strategy to peel away younger male voters, were obvious. But in any scenario now, the Democratic nominee is going to be someone much younger than the president. A strategy of strong versus frail against Vice President Kamala Harris or one of the more youthful Democratic governors who are mentioned as possible Biden successors just won't pack the same punch. If Harris is the nominee, expect the Republicans to try to tie her to the perceived failings of the current administration. For months they have called her the border czar. Although the former prosecutor is by no means from the progressive wing of the party, previous Republican attacks on her suggest they may also paint her as radical left. No matter who the nominee is, the Republicans are sure to blame the Democrats for covering up Biden's age-related weaknesses and putting the nation at risk. At this point, everyone is flying blind with just a few months until the first presidential ballots are cast.
Now, welcome to the special report, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the special report is a special report that I will report on. I've seen a lot of special reports that are going down into this world, but I wanted to talk about this one on the show, SNN Primetime News. I wanted to talk about the reality of reality shows. Now, we've been seeing an influx of a lot of reality shows, and primarily the dating reality shows where they're popping up, and a lot of people, they're talking about it. Now, a lot of people are talking about Netflix in particular when it comes down to the hip reality shows. Now, there's a lot of reality shows out there for Netflix. You got The Circle, you got The Mole, you got Too Hot to Handle, you got Perfect Match. You have so many reality shows where they all tie in together. Now, I wanted to talk about when it comes down to the shows of The Perfect Match, The Mole, Too Hot to Handle, and The Circle, right? Because I feel like that Netflix is starting something kind of unique. We all know about the Marvel universe where Marvel movies come out and then they're always having separate Marvel movies to intertwine with each other for it to make one big story. And that's what Netflix, I feel like it's doing, is combining all of these shows all at once now. You might have somebody who is on season 2 of Too Hot to Handle or The Ultimatum that might come to the Perfect Match episode, right? Or you might have it to where the latest current season of Too Hot to Handle, I believe, is season 6. You have somebody from The Mole or you have somebody from season 2 of that same show to come back on that show, right? And that person from season 2 comes back on Too Hot to Handle season 6, but they were also on season 2 of The Perfect Match. Right, they're starting something very, very interesting. Netflix and the reality dating shows when it comes down to it, because all of these shows are influxing together. Now, I've had some of my family members comment on it, and we were talking about it. You know, they also watch the shows as well, but I think a lot of people are starting to get interested into the real life reality shows. Now, we all know Too Hot to Handle, The Ultimatum, The Mole, The Perfect Match, The Circle. You have people who are tremendously hot, who are tremendously supermodels. A lot of people out there that are supermodels out there, they're going to these shows with the gentleman with the six packs and the perfect hair, the chiseled jaw. And then you have the woman with the perfect body, the perfect buttocks, if you will, the perfect teeth, the perfect hair. Just perfect all around. They mingle together, but it gives us that grand slam of entertainment. Why do you think that is? I know why that is, because that's something that we, not only it's entertaining, but it's something that we see ourselves that we wish that we have. And I say that because I know, me with my workout routine and losing the weight, of course, I'm okay. I'm handsome with it, but I don't have the super perfect chiseled jaw. I don't have the 8-pack quite just yet. Now, I'm going to manifest that. But we don't have the perfect laid back hair and the nice tan. And, hey, I work out every day on the clock, 4 days a week, 5 times a day. We don't do that in the real world. And some of those people that are on these shows, hey, they live in the real world. They know what it's about. But they do all of this stuff because they are what you call, in a way, actors, right? You're on a Netflix show. You're not primarily acting, but you're on camera. So you're going to put on a show when it comes down to the cameras. It's entertainment. A lot of people are dabbling into it. Netflix and these shows, they have something. They have something very, very spectacular when it comes down to it. I think it's great. I think it's one of those things where it works. It's entertainment. But the reality of it is a lot of people are dabbling into these shows, but they're dabbling into the real life shows. Let's take 90 Day Fiancé, for an example. That's the show that you can watch on HBO Max. But, you have 90 Day Fiancé where a lot of people go in there and these are real people. You have somebody from Wisconsin that might be not so super buff guy, the not so toned, not so chiseled, maybe got a beer gut maybe. But you have somebody from across the land there, across the sea to come over and they have real jobs. Not to say that shows, these contestants, if you will, from Too Hot to Handle or The Mole or The Circle. Not saying that they don't have real jobs, but they don't really disclose what they do. And I wonder why is that? They don't really disclose what's their occupation, what gets them out of bed to make the money and pay the bills. That's something you're not going to see in these type shows. You're going to see that in 90 Day Fiancé. My gentleman from Wisconsin who has a beer gut, he works in IT. I hope he's not working this current IT with the IT outage, but he works in IT. And when he works in IT, he's able to get it in and he understands and he works hard. And he's trying to find somebody from either overseas to be his 90 Day Fiancé. It's crazy. It's crazy. A lot of reality shows are dabbling into it. I think Netflix has a formula that they're going to stick with. They're going to stick with the top people, the top gun, the top shows that's making Netflix a boatload of money. And it's too hot to handle. That's the first show to ever blaze the Netflix scene when it comes down to the dating reality shows. Season 6. Season 6 is out now. They're making too much money. Too much money is caused for this, and they're going to continue to make this money when it comes down to these reality shows. I do encourage people to watch it for the entertainment, but I also like to watch the reality type shows as well when it comes down to 90 Day Fiancé. These are real people. They're real stories. It's kind of almost like a documentary, right? I think a lot of people are dabbling now, as us podcasters and broadcasters, a lot of people are dabbling more into documentaries nowadays because documentaries, they get it done. Documentaries get it done. I've watched this new documentary. It's called Receiver. Receiver was a very, very good documentary. It's highlighting all of the 4 wide receivers, either from Las Vegas or either from the Steelers or even from the Cleveland Browns to the Detroit Lions. These are real people that's playing ball and they're expanding out. Another documentary I would suggest is Hard Knock. Hard Knock. There's another football documentary. They're talking about one of my favorite teams, New York Giants. Let's get Daniel Jones out of here, by the way. But New York Giants, they're doing a documentary on that story, and it works. It works really, really well. So, again, the reality shows, the twist is, all of these shows are finding the formula. And what's interesting about season 6 of Too Hot to Handle, one thing that they're doing, they can't have it to where people come out and say, we're going to create this fake show, but really you're on Too Hot to Handle. People seen the shows. A lot of people see this. You're in season 6. So that gimmick can only go too far. So they're finding ways to twist and turn the story around to make it better. And I think it works. I think this works, guys. I think it works when it comes down to these reality shows. A lot of shows on Netflix, but you got to really understand the reality of these 2 shows. Now we're going to continue on with this special episode of SNN Primetime News. Continue on. Kennedy Lucas.
Delivering the world to your doorstep. From breaking news to in-depth features, from politics to culture, from science to sports. Welcome to SNN Primetime News with Kennedy Lucas Patterson.
It's a situation where after hours stock go down, market open stock go up, good subscriber numbers, concerning guidance. Which is more important for you, Laura?
I think the subscriber number is in focus in both periods. So they over-delivered. They added 8 million subscribers. That was about twice the consensus. But then they had a very anemic subscriber growth number for the 3rd quarter, and they talked about a tougher second half. So the answer is subscribers matter a lot, but not that subscribers like overall. And also the location of the subscribers is sort of suboptimal. They're adding subscribers in the lowest ARPU, or what they call ARM, average revenue per user. And so that's actually, Wall Street doesn't like that either. And the biggest problem is they're going to stop giving us subscriber guidance and actually ARPU guidance in the 1st quarter of next year. And they just want to talk about revenue. And that's a really big problem because it's going to add volatility to the stock. Where the subscribers are, I find so interesting as well, is they talked about strength in Asia Pacific. And then in terms of context of the guidance, like currency impacts, particularly in Argentina, if you're covering this stock, where do you want to see subscriber growth? $16 ARPUs in America, you want to see them all there because it's like 2x. They pay twice as much in America compared to LATAM or APAC.
Okay, so you want more expensive money being taken in from the more expensive clientele, but ultimately are they going to get that at the moment, Laura? Are we saturated? We're still trying to discern which streaming service I want to be using and which one should be merging.
Yep. Well, and I really like their go. I think the reason their churn is falling, like in America, they're saturated, as you say, is lives. I think when they do these live fights and these live roasts and these exclusive live programming, it keeps people paying for the next month because they really market these things, these exclusive live events. So I really I think their video game and advertising is very troubled here. Video games troubled, but I think live is a really interesting genre for Netflix to lower churn. Okay, so they need to be investing basically because that takes a Herculean effort from a technological perspective, right? Yeah, and they're paying for like NFL games, so they're joining the arms race in really expensive live the sports programming. So that isn't great for your content budget. Look ahead.
Delivering the world to your doorstep. From breaking news to in-depth features, from politics to culture, from science to sports. Welcome to SNN Primetime News with Kennedy Lucas Patterson.